My lawyer's voice was shaking when he told me to sit down. And that was the moment I knew my entire life was about to go up in flames. He didn't just say there was a problem. He told me that the daughter I had raised for 18 years, the girl I had stayed up with through fevers, the girl I had worked 3 jobs to put through private school, wasn't actually mine. But it wasn't just a simple case of a hospital mix-up or a hidden affair from my past. The truth he revealed was far more calculated, far more sinister, and involved a level of betrayal from my own family that I didn't think humanly possible. I'm standing here now, looking at the legal documents that prove my daughter is a stranger to my blood, while the person who actually belongs to me has been living a life of absolute misery just a few miles away. I have to ask you all honestly before I get into how this happened. If you found out your entire identity as a father was a lie constructed by the people you trusted most, would you burn everything down to get justice, or would you try to protect the child who calls you dad even if she's part of the lie? I really need you to tell me if I'm the villain for what I did next, because my lawyer thinks I've gone too far, but I think I haven't gone far enough. To understand how I got to that phone call, you have to go back 19 years to when I met Sarah. Sarah was everything I thought I wanted. Kind, beautiful, and coming from a very prestigious family that initially looked down on me because I was just a guy starting a landscaping business. Her mother, Eleanor, was the matriarch from hell, the kind of woman who measured a person's worth by their zip code and the brand of their watch. When Sarah got pregnant, Eleanor was horrified because we weren't married yet, but I stepped up. I did everything right. I proposed, I bought a house I could barely afford, and I spent every waking hour making sure Sarah was comfortable. When our daughter, Maya, was born, she was the light of my life. She had these bright blue eyes and a smile that could melt stone. Sarah was a great mother, or so I thought. But Eleanor was always hovering, always whispering, always making sure Maya knew that the finer things came from her side of the family. I remember those early years vividly, the way Eleanor would criticize the clothes I bought for Maya or the toys I picked out, claiming they were common and not fitting for a girl of her stature. I ignored it because I thought it was just old money snobbery, never imagining it was a way to keep me feeling inferior while they hid a massive crime. As Maya grew up, I noticed she didn't look much like me, but I'm a big guy with dark hair and she was petite and blonde like Sarah, so I never questioned it for a second. I poured every ounce of my soul into that girl. I coached her soccer games, I held her hair back when she was sick, and I taught her how to drive in the very truck I used to build my empire. We were a happy family, or at least the perfect version of one. I built my business into a massive success, eventually becoming one of the most sought-after contractors in the state, and I gave Maya everything. Every hobby, every trip to Europe, every designer bag she ever asked for was handed to her on a silver platter. Sarah stayed at home, managing the household and spending time with her mother. They were inseparable, which I thought was just a tight mother-daughter bond. I used to come home and see them whispering in the kitchen, and they'd stop the moment I walked in. I thought they were just gossiping or planning a surprise for me. Now, every single one of those memories feels like a slap in the face. They weren't gossiping. They were managing a secret that would have sent them to prison if I had found out. But then 6 months ago, Sarah passed away unexpectedly from a sudden stroke. My world ended. I was inconsolable, and Maya was devastated. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. I stepped up even more to be her rock, trying to fill the void Sarah left behind. But during the probate of Sarah's will, things started getting weird. My lawyer, Mark, who has been a friend for a decade, was going through Sarah's private safe deposit box that she'd kept secret from me. He found a set of medical records and a legal agreement dated 3 days after Maya was born. That's when I got the message. Call me immediately. When I called, Mark didn't even say hello. He just asked if I was alone and if I had a drink nearby. He told me that Sarah had a medical condition she never told me about. She was actually sterile since her teenage years. She had never been pregnant. My mind went blank. I told him he was crazy. I saw her belly grow. I felt the baby kick, or what I thought was the baby. Mark explained that Eleanor had hired a high-end SFX artist from the film industry to create a realistic prosthetic belly for Sarah to wear for 9 months. I was so busy working to provide for them that I didn't notice the small details. The way she always wore loose clothing or how she never let me touch her stomach in the dark. Mark dropped the bomb. Eleanor had arranged a private, illegal adoption through a shady clinic that specializes in discreet placements for the wealthy. They had faked the pregnancy and used Sarah's recovery time at Eleanor's private estate to finalize the paperwork. But it gets worse. Much, much worse. They didn't just find a random baby. Eleanor had found out that my actual biological daughter, the result of a brief encounter I had during a short 6-week breakup Sarah and I had months before our wedding, had been born to a woman named Clara. Clara was a struggling waitress I had dated for 3 weeks, when I thought Sarah was gone for good. When Sarah and I reconciled, I told her about Clara, and she claimed she forgave me. But Eleanor never forgave. She found out Clara was pregnant with my child. Eleanor didn't want a waitress's brat, inheriting the family name or my growing fortune. But she also didn't want me leaving Sarah for Clara once I found out about the baby. So, Eleanor used her connections and a massive amount of money to bribe a corrupt social worker to deem Clara unfit based on fabricated evidence of drug use. She took my biological daughter away from her mother, and then, instead of giving her to us, she put the baby into a foster care system under a different name to get her out of the way forever. Then, she bought a baby from a desperate teenage girl from another state to give to Sarah and me so Sarah could play mommy and keep me tied to the family legacy. The girl I had raised, Maya, was the daughter of that teenager. My biological daughter, the girl who should have been mine, was out there somewhere in the system, and Clara had spent the rest of her life trying to find her, only to be blocked by Eleanor's legal team at every turn. I sat in my office for 3 hours in total silence after that call, the walls feeling like they were closing in on me. Every memory of Maya taking her first steps, every birthday party where I dressed up as a clown, every I love you, Daddy felt like a toxic poison in my veins. I looked at photos of Maya and realized she was a product of a cold-blooded transaction, a pawn in Eleanor's game to keep me under her thumb and ensure her daughter's marriage didn't fail. I felt a sudden, violent urge to find Clara and my real daughter. I hired the most expensive private investigator in the country immediately, telling him money was no object. What he found broke me into a million pieces. Clara had passed away 5 years ago in a small, lonely apartment, succumbing to heartbreak and addiction after a life spent in and out of courtrooms trying to fight a system that was rigged against her by Eleanor's money. My biological daughter, whose name was now Lily, had spent 18 years bouncing between 14 different foster homes, some of them abusive, some of them just indifferent. She was currently working 2 jobs, one at a 24-hour diner and another cleaning offices at night, living in a tiny rundown apartment with a leaking ceiling, trying to put herself through community college. She had nothing. No family, no support, no one who cared if she came home at night. Meanwhile, Maya was upstairs in our mansion, screaming at a maid because her silk pillowcases weren't ironed properly, and complaining that her brand new European sports car's leather seats weren't the right shade of beige. The contrast was so sharp it felt like a physical blow to the chest. I was looking at 2 lives, one built on a mountain of lies, theft, and luxury, and one built on tragedy, struggle, and resilience. I realized that while I was buying Maya designer shoes, my own flesh and blood was probably wondering where her next meal was coming from. I started looking back at Maya's behavior over the years, the way she mirrored Eleanor's cruelty and Sarah's vanity. I had always tried to correct it, thinking it was just the influence of her grandmother, but now I saw it for what it was. The result of being raised in a house of secrets where she was taught she was better than everyone else. This is the point where my head started spinning, and I couldn't breathe. I was stuck in a nightmare. I had a daughter I loved with all my heart but who wasn't mine and was becoming a person I hated. And a daughter I didn't know who was suffering because of my own family's greed. Do I tell Maya the truth and potentially destroy the only world she's ever known? Or do I leave it alone and let Lily continue to suffer in silence? Please, pause right now and comment what you would do, because the decision I made next changed everything and led to a confrontation that ended with the police at my door. I decided to meet Lily without telling her who I was. I went to the greasy diner where she worked the graveyard shift. Seeing her was like looking into a mirror. She had my jawline, my eyes, and even the way she tilted her head when she was confused was exactly like my father. She was kind, despite the world being cruel to her. She worked with a quiet dignity that Maya wouldn't understand in 100 years. I ordered a coffee and watched her, my heart breaking with every step she took. I tipped her $5,000 in cash, left it under the plate, and walked out before she could see me crying. I sobbed in my car for an hour, mourning the 18 years I had missed, the dances I didn't get to attend, and the daughter I had failed because I was too blind to see the snakes in my own home. Then I went to Eleanor's estate. I didn't knock. I drove my truck right through her ornamental iron gates and kicked the front door in. The old woman was sitting in her sunroom, sipping tea from a china cup worth more than Lily's car. When I threw the safe deposit box documents on her table, she didn't even flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She actually had the audacity to set her tea down and tell me she did me a favor. She said she gave me a clean slate and a proper child, and that Clara was a mistake that needed to be erased for the sake of my career. She told me that if I ever revealed the truth, she would use her influence to tie me up in court for the rest of my life, claim I was mentally unstable, and make sure I lost every contract my business had. She thought she still owned me. She thought her money made her invincible. That was her biggest mistake, because I had spent 20 years building my own power, and I wasn't the scared kid she met 2 decades ago. I went home and I told Maya everything that night. I sat her down in the living room, surrounded by the expensive art and furniture I'd bought her, and I showed her the DNA results and the adoption papers. I expected her to be horrified. I expected her to cry for the girl who had been robbed of her father. Instead, Maya's face went cold. Her first question wasn't about her birth mother or the lies she'd been told. She looked me in the eye and asked, "Does this mean I'm not getting the trust fund when I turn 21? I realized in that moment that Eleanor had succeeded in raising Maya to be exactly like her, shallow, entitled, and utterly devoid of empathy. The girl I thought I knew was a ghost. The person standing in front of me was a monster created by the very people who had ruined my life. She didn't care about the truth. She only cared about the lifestyle the lie provided. I moved out the next day. I didn't just leave. I vanished. I liquidated every personal asset I had that wasn't tied to the family estate. I filed a massive federal lawsuit against Eleanor, the clinic, and every social worker involved in the kidnapping of my daughter. I used my legal standing as the biological father to finally claim Lily. When I finally sat Lily down and told her the truth, showing her the photos of Clara and the evidence of what had happened, she didn't ask about my money or the mansion. She didn't ask for a car. She just looked at a picture of her mother and asked if she could finally see where Clara was buried. We spent hours at that gravesite, crying together, and I promised her right then and there that she would never spend another day alone. I bought her a house in a safe neighborhood, paid off her student loans in full, and I'm currently in the process of adopting her legally as an adult so she can carry my name, the name she should have had from birth. As for Eleanor, the lawsuit opened a massive investigation into her finances, revealing decades of tax evasion and bribery. She's currently under house arrest awaiting trial, and her friends have all disappeared. Maya? She moved in with Eleanor and spent the last few months trying to sue me for emotional distress, because I cut off her credit cards and took back the car that was in my company's name. She sends me hateful texts every day calling me a traitor and a deadbeat. But I don't feel a thing for her anymore. I realized you can't fix a person who is built on a foundation of greed. I lost 18 years with my real daughter, but I'm spending every day now making up for it. We're traveling, we're talking, and I'm watching her blossom into the person she was always meant to be without the shadow of the foster system hanging over her. It's been a messy, painful, and very public disaster, but for the first time in 19 years, I can look in the mirror and know that I'm not living a lie. My business took a hit, and my reputation in the high society circles is ruined, but I've never felt richer. I gave up a fake life for a real one, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Was it wrong of me to completely cut Maya off after seeing her true colors? Or did I do the right thing by putting all my resources into the daughter who was stolen from me? I truly believe that family isn't just about who you raise, it's about the soul of the person and the truth you live by every day. If you think I made the right call by choosing Lily over the spoiled lie Eleanor created, please like this video. It's been the hardest year of my life, and hearing your support actually helps more than you know. Subscribe if you want to hear the full update on the court case against Eleanor, because there are even more secrets coming out about that clinic every single day. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I owe Maya more loyalty because I raised her? Or was the betrayal of my biological daughter too deep to ever move past? I'll see you all in the next story.